Ours to Protect. Brought to you by Tip FM, the IBI, and funded by Commission Naman with the television licence fee.
I connect to nature by planting pumpkins and usually sometimes apple trees so there's more air on Earth.
I connect to nature by planting flowers and trees in my back garden.
I connect to nature by going for walks and picking up leaves and twigs. It's fun and it gets me in a better mood.
By climbing trees and collecting stuff like bark.
I run every day and play football.
By less driving and collecting rubbish.
I connect to nature by playing with my friends outside.
I'm riding on my bike and playing in the park with my friends.
It's so lovely to hear all the ways that kids connect to the outdoors, especially coming into the colder winter months. Hey there, it's Ellie and you are listening to Ours to Protect. This week we are chatting all things ecotherapy. Brona caught up with Alex Kostner, founder of Roots and Wings, a company that specialises in nature connecting practices to improve mental health, otherwise known as ecotherapy.
Can you explain what is ecotherapy?
Ecotherapy is really an umbrella term for nature connecting approaches, and they are usually facilitated by a trained professional. You might be familiar with some of the approaches because they're kind of up and coming. Many of them, they include horticultural or gardening therapy, eco-art therapy, forest bathing. There's also wilderness experiences where you really unplug completely from technology and just spend time in nature. There's nature-based mindfulness, or also approaches that facilitate nature connection for people who might not be able to regularly spend time in nature, which I'm really passionate about because, especially for people who can't get out due to illness or disability or even opportunity, it's really important to provide nature connection for people like that as well. And ecotherapy is really also about acknowledging the interconnection of everything, rather than an approach that only focuses on human health and well-being, because we often have that with other therapies. Humans are the focus, but there's a saying, I don't know if you've ever heard it, we can't have healthy humans on a sick planet. So ecotherapy puts emphasis on both human and planetary health. And I really believe that the growing demand for ecotherapy is really a response to the decline in our opportunities for nature connection. We all have really busy schedules. Some of us are living in areas where, access is difficult, and things like technology, like smartphones, computers, gaming devices, especially for our young people, are really keeping us or many of them inside. But, our brains are really wired for nature connection. Yeah, that's really just a brief overview of what ecotherapy is and why it's so important in the times that we live in.
And how did you come up with the idea to kind of find your own ecotherapy business?
Oh, Jeannie, that was really kind of a slow process. Nature connection has always been a big part of my own life. I grew up literally right beside the forest in Germany, and I've always found that nature connection for me was really important. But the business really started after I published my book, because the name comes really from that. It's called Roots and Wings, Childhood Needs a Revolution. I was a teacher for over 20 years, and one of my main concerns was always to try and integrate anything that I was teaching into nature connection, because I could really see how much less time, especially children, are spending outdoors. I had to give up teaching because of my own health concerns. So yeah, it was kind of an organic process that came from a little bit of an external push because I had to give up my job as a teacher.
And do you find that children these days, are they interested in understanding the environment, and are they aware of how important sustainability and the likes is?
I don't really think that especially young children need to have so much understanding, but they need to have experience of things. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it's, if we just explain to children why they shouldn't be doing this or why we should be doing that, I think they can get bored quite quickly. But when we kind of integrate it naturally into what we're doing with them, into, into really connecting them to nature without telling them why necessarily. If we just do it in a fun way and they kind of find a love for nature, they then, when they get older, we can only protect what we love. So to kind of really connect in a fun and connecting and loving way is, I think, the approach that we should be taking, rather than explaining too much about why, because that will come, we are all bombarded with why and what's happening, which can be a little bit too extreme even for adults. So for children, I think it's very important to do it in an experiential way for them to experience things rather than know why, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. And where did you find your passion for nature and for the environment?
As I said a minute ago, I grew up right beside the forest in Germany, and nature connection was always a really, really big part of my life. Like, both of my parents really prioritized a deep connection to our environment, especially through our food. My dad was a biology teacher, and he taught us so much about the nature all around us. We grew a lot of our own food in our garden, and my love for foraging really started when I was a really young child. Again, like I was saying, just by experiencing it. Like, we would spend hours in the woods looking for mushrooms, for nuts, for berries. And I always had a really close relationship, really, to all the living beings around, even little creatures. And then at the time when I was going to school, our education system in Germany had a really strong emphasis on nature education, which I later continued in my work as a teacher. And also for me personally, because I would have had a long journey with my own physical and mental health. And to this day, when I really feel unbalanced or not well, I take off my shoes and socks and I go out the front door and I stand on grass, for a few minutes. It's just always been a really healing and, feeling of belonging for me.
Literally get your toes in the dirt or in you are literally connecting with it. But what kind of things would you recommend for people to get more involved?
I often use the phrase nature connection is an inside job. We could be outdoors and we could be caught up in our heads and not even noticing what around us, and we might have the earphones in with the podcast, and we mightn't be connected mindfully at all. And equally, we could be in a room with no windows and we could still be fully immersed in our connection to nature. And sometimes people think we need to do big nature hikes or we need to do, big activities outdoors. But nature connection is really, really easily integrated into our everyday lives. And it comes down really to simple awareness a lot of the time. One example is we all eat. We have to eat every day. All of our food, it doesn't matter how processed it is, all of our food comes from nature. So even if we took one meal a day and we just sat down and really mindfully thought about where the meal came from, where it grew, who was involved in growing it and transporting it and making it. The same going shopping. Where did it come from? Did it travel? That has a lot to do with sustainability as well. If we kind of become aware, nature connection can be indoors even. Sometimes we think we don't have nature all around us. And then if we sit down and look around, at the moment I'm sitting in my office and I can look outside and I see a bit of blue sky and a few clouds. I look in the other side and I can see a cobweb with a spider. So it doesn't really matter where you are. Nature connection is everywhere. It's really possible in every moment of our day to connect to nature without necessarily having to go on a big hike or on a big adventure outdoors, which of course, if you can, is the best option. But, a lot of the time we're so limited with our time and our resources that it's really important to find these little pockets of nature connection throughout our days.
And what effect does being in the outdoors have on your mental health?
There's so many benefits, and of course mental, physical, spiritual health is all connected anyway, but it reduces stress, it improves mood. I won't go into the kind of science behind it. It gives us a sense of belonging. It improves cognitive function and creativity. Daylight exposure really increases our serotonin and vitamin D, which are both really important for our mental health. Also, if we spend plenty of time outdoors, it really supports our circadian rhythm, which means that we sleep better, that we can relax better. So these are just a few kind of more generalized benefits on our mental health.
And if we circle back to Roots and Wings, what services do you offer for people?
So our business is quite varied. So first and foremost, we are an online training school for professionals, but also parents and other interested folks. So we offer fully certified training. Like our main course is a 3-month ecotherapy training, which is a professional, fully certified training. Then we have a training called Mindful Nature Education, which is for parents and educators, how we learn to integrate more nature connection into our education or home settings. And then we have a favorite course as well, which is called the 7 Elements of Climate Resilience, which is a really beautiful course that's self-paced. People can do it at their own pace and learn how to not only exist in these times, but kind of really find hope and become proactive. But I do one-to-one mentoring as well. We also have a 6-week program. It's called the Rest and Restore Protocol. And just in case, if anybody is interested, I have a free webinar on the 7th of October. And the registration link is in my Instagram account, which is at Roots and Wings Ecotherapy.
I really love what Alex said there about not being able to have healthy humans on a sick planet. For more details, you can find Alex on her socials at Roots and Wings Ecotherapy, and she also has a blog on her website www.rootsandwings.ie. Now, earlier this week, I visited my old stomping ground of Clonmel Tidy Towns, where we talked about litter and what we can do to combat it. We were talking a lot about recycling and litter, and I know you do litter picking here in Tidy Towns as well.
We do.
So what do you think is the biggest issue with litter and why people litter?
I think there's a kind of an attitude out there that it's somebody else's job to pick up litter. So it's actually, I think sometimes people feel it's acceptable to throw the thing down the ground because somebody will come along behind them. So sometimes we've really good social media, and sometimes we might put up a post about the amount of bags of litter we've picked in some area or something like that. And people will come on then and start and often sometimes would tell us about other places that we should go and pick litter in. And I sometimes feel, if you as a person saw a bit of litter outside your house or just outside your garden or whatever, couldn't you just put on a pair of gloves and pick up a bag and run out and pick up a few bits yourself? Like, if everybody picked up a bit, it would be great. But I think sometimes there's an attitude that it's the council's job to pick up litter, and actually everybody is responsible for picking up litter, and everyone is responsible for this lovely town that we live in, that we're lucky enough to live in. We don't appreciate maybe, but we should appreciate, because it is a lovely town and there's brilliant people in this town trying to do stuff for the town, and it's everyone's responsibility to do their tiny bit to help the town.
And Deirdre, one of the other members, was saying, like, sometimes some evenings when you go out and pick up litter, it would fill back up again in the space of 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's a regular occurrence. Like, we might do the centre of town, and the next day you go downtown yourself and you see a ton more litter on the road. Yeah. And so, another thing that I noticed on the bypass, if we have one particular member, he doesn't do anything else, only pick up litter at the bypass. He's amazing, and he does it. I don't know how often he does it. He tries to do the whole bypass in a period of time, and I think quite a lot of the litter on the bypass is just people throwing stuff out the window. Like, fast food bags, things like that. People just throw them out the window. You'll see it on the outskirts of town, that sometimes if people have been to fast food joints in town, they'll be on their way home or whatever. They literally just put everything back in the bag and they'll throw the bag out the window. It's easy to bring the bag home, put in the bin, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually have noticed that when I'm driving home late.
That's very regular, actually.
From work and stuff. And we were talking about the return scheme and how that initiative has kind of curbed it a little bit.
Yeah, that's been very successful, I think. Yeah, because I think people are less likely to throw the can on the ground or throw it out the window or whatever when they know that there's a 15 cent or whatever, that they can gather a few together and go down, maybe get a few euros. And I live in town, actually, and I regularly see young lads with big black bags on bikes heading down towards Duns with their bags. So they're actually obviously going around picking up, whereas before they would have been left on the road. So the return scheme has been I think it's been really successful, actually.
Great. And do you think there's anything else that we can do for the town, or that individuals can do to make a difference environmentally?
It's very hard. I've been involved in Tidy Towns for a long time, and I've seen lots of different initiatives that we've tried to instigate, and maybe going into neighbourhoods and trying to get people in that neighbourhood to come out and give us a hand, maybe in their neighbourhood of a Saturday morning or something. And I think it'd be lovely if people could just say, I have a half an hour on a Saturday morning. If the Tidy Towns are around my area, if I see them out, I could go out and give them a hand, just for 10 minutes even. just to give a little hand. It's everyone's job to make the town nice, you know.
So you don't even need to be a member to take part, but if you did want to become a member, I'm a former member of Tidy Towns in Clonmel myself, but do you meet up every Saturday morning? Like, how do people get in touch if they want to?
The main thing to do would be to go onto our website, Clonmel Tidy Towns, and there's an application form there. We give opportunities then for members to get involved then. There's a bit of a process because we have to be insured and all that kind of thing, so there is a little bit of a process, which is understandable. But people are welcome to go onto the website and have a little look.
Great, thanks so much for chatting to me, Clodagh.
It's important that we recycle so we don't just have heaps of rubbish.
Recycling is like if you have rubbish or waste that you're not using, you put it into a rubbish bin or like a recycle bin, and basically reusing something so it doesn't really make landfill.
We can take care of the environment by putting litter into trash cans that are 2 meters away from us.
We can help the environment by making sure there's no litter in the ocean.
Thousands of used batteries were recycled during the last school year when a total of 16 schools across Tipperary took part in WEEE's Ireland's School Battery Recycling Competition. We caught up with Head of Environmental Compliance at WEEE, Elizabeth O'Reilly, to hear more.
So a new European batteries regulation has raised the bar for all of us, and we're seeing schools across Ireland proving they're well ready to meet the challenge in our We Ireland Schools Battery Recycling Competition. Through incredible efforts of students and teachers and local communities, they're helping us ensure that we meet minimum collection, recycling and recovery targets. So materials like copper, cobalt, lead, lithium and nickel can be recovered through recycling systems and are recaptured as part of a more circular battery economy.
So what can those materials be used for again?
We can use those for manufacturing the devices that power our lives and mobilise us in our vehicles and our devices, showing every battery does count.
Ours to Protect, brought to you by Tip FM, the IBI, and funded by Commission Naman with the television licence fee.